I was halfway to the front door when my phone buzzed. A blocked number, 4th time that day. My hand hesitated on the doorknob as I answered. A voice whispered urgently through the speaker, "Don't go home tonight, Thomas. Please." "Not yet." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stood there frozen, key in hand, staring at my own front door like it belonged to a stranger's house. Through the window, I saw movement. My wife Sarah's silhouette passed by the kitchen. Then I heard it, her son Derek's voice drifting through the crack in the door. "Is tonight still the night?" he asked someone inside. My blood ran cold. That was my house. My family. The place I'd called home for 12 years. And suddenly, I wasn't safe in it anymore. I backed away slowly, got into my car, and drove to the nearest coffee shop. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. Something was very wrong. And somehow, a complete stranger knew about it before I did. Let me back up and explain who I am. Before we continue, I would like to know where you're watching from in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button and share this video, as this will help this video to travel far so others can learn also. My name is Thomas Reynolds. I'm 43 years old, and until recently, I thought I had a good life. I married Sarah 12 years ago when I was 31. She was a widow with 2 young boys, Derek and Kyle. They were 3 and 5 back then. I fell in love with all 3 of them. I worked hard as an engineer, provided for our family, and treated those boys like my own sons. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. I thought we were happy. Looking back now, I see the signs I missed. The way Sarah's affection cooled over the years. How the boys grew distant as teenagers. The strange looks they'd exchange when I walked into a room. But I blamed myself. I thought I was failing as a husband and stepfather. I tried harder. Worked longer hours to give them more. Bought them gifts. Planned family trips. I bent over backward to make everyone happy. And the whole time, I was just making myself the perfect victim. That night at the coffee shop, I stared at my phone for an hour. The blocked number didn't call back. I wanted to think I'd imagined the warning, but Derek's words kept echoing in my mind. "Is tonight still the night? The night for what?" I finally went home around midnight. The house was dark and quiet. Sarah was asleep in our bed, or pretending to be. I lay awake beside her until dawn, watching shadows move across the ceiling. The next morning felt normal. Sarah made breakfast. The boys ate quickly and left for their part-time jobs. Everything seemed fine. But I couldn't shake the feeling of wrongness that had settled in my chest. At work, I couldn't focus. I kept checking my phone, waiting for another call. It came during lunch. "Thomas," the voice said, "they know you're worth more dead than alive. Check your life insurance policy. And whatever you do, don't eat or drink anything she gives you tonight." Then silence. My sandwich suddenly tasted like cardboard in my mouth. I left work early, telling my boss I felt sick. That wasn't a lie. I drove straight to my insurance agent's office without calling ahead. The receptionist looked surprised to see me, but she pulled up my file. What I saw made my stomach drop. My life insurance policy had been increased to $750,000 6 months ago. I stared at the signature on the form. It looked like mine, but I had no memory of signing it. The beneficiaries were listed as Sarah Reynolds and her 2 sons, Derek and Kyle Martinez. Not even using my last name for them. When did I sign this? I asked the receptionist. She checked her computer. It was submitted online, Mr. Reynolds. Through your account. I never submitted anything online. I didn't even remember my login password for the insurance portal. Someone had done this without my knowledge. Someone who had access to my information. Someone who lived in my house. I thanked the receptionist and walked out in a daze. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. $750,000. That's what my life was worth to them. I thought about the past 6 months. Had I been sick more often? Headaches, dizziness, fatigue. Sarah had been so caring, making me special teas and meals. "You work too hard," she'd say. "Let me take care of you." I'd felt grateful. Now I felt like a fool. I drove to a pharmacy and bought a drug test kit. At home, I locked myself in the bathroom and tested my urine. The results showed traces of benzodiazepines. Sleeping medication. I'd never taken sleeping pills in my life. My hands trembled as I stared at the test strip. They were drugging me. My own family was poisoning me slowly, methodically. I flushed the evidence and washed my face with cold water. In the mirror, I looked pale and tired. Defeated. But I wasn't defeated yet. I was angry. And anger would keep me alive. That night at dinner, I watched them carefully. Sarah served pot roast, my favorite. She gave me a generous portion and a glass of red wine. "You look tired, honey," she said, smiling sweetly. "Drink up. It'll help you relax." I smiled back and raised the glass to my lips. But I didn't drink. When she turned to get more bread, I poured half the wine into the plant beside the table. I pushed the food around my plate, pretending to eat while actually feeding most of it to our dog under the table. The boys barely looked at me during the meal. They seemed nervous, exchanging glances with their mother. After dinner, Sarah made chamomile tea. "Your favorite," she said, pressing the warm mug into my hands. I thanked her and carried it to the living room. When everyone was distracted by the television, I dumped it in the kitchen sink. An hour later, Sarah looked disappointed. "You didn't finish your tea," she observed. I yawned dramatically. "I'm already so sleepy. I think I'll head to bed early." Her face lit up. "Good idea. You need rest." That's when I knew for certain. She wanted me unconscious. I didn't sleep that night either. I lay in bed with my eyes closed, listening. Around 2 in the morning, I heard whispers outside our bedroom door. Derek's voice, low and urgent. "He's not going down as easy as before. Should we increase the dose?" Sarah's response chilled me to the bone. "No. Too risky. We'll stick to the plan. The cabin this weekend. Make it look like an accident." Kyle spoke next, younger but just as cold. "What if he doesn't want to go to the cabin?" Sarah laughed softly. "He'll go. I'll tell him we need family time. He's desperate for that." They were planning to kill me at the cabin. Our family cabin by the lake, 2 hours north. A place with no neighbors, no witnesses. A place where accidents could happen easily. I kept my breathing steady and even, pretending to be in deep sleep. After they left, I grabbed my phone from under my pillow and typed everything into a note. I needed to document this. I needed proof. And I needed a plan of my own. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed Sarah goodbye before work, ruffled Kyle's hair, waved to Derek. I drove to the office but didn't go inside. Instead, I went to see Marcus, my oldest friend. He lived across town, and we'd known each other since college. I trusted him with my life, which was appropriate given the circumstances. I told him everything. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Thomas, you need to go to the police right now." I shook my head. "And tell them what? That my family might be planning something? I have no solid proof. Just suspicions and a forged insurance document." Marcus frowned. "The drugs in your system could have come from anywhere. They'll say I took them myself. I need concrete evidence." I pulled out a small recording device I'd bought that morning. "I'm going to record everything. Get them on tape talking about their plan. Then I'll have proof." Marcus looked worried, but he nodded. "Be careful, brother. And keep me updated every day." At home, I started planting recording devices. One behind the living room bookshelf. One in the kitchen cabinet. One in the hallway near the bedrooms. Small, voice-activated devices that would capture everything. I felt like a spy in my own house. That evening, I pretended to be extra tired. I stumbled a bit, rubbed my temples, complained of dizziness. Sarah's eyes lit up with something that looked horribly like hope. "Maybe we should go to the cabin this weekend," she suggested, right on cue. "Get you away from work stress. Fresh air might help." I nodded slowly. "That sounds good. I could use the break." Derek and Kyle exchanged a look across the dinner table. "We'll come too," Derek said. "Family time." I smiled at them, these boys I'd helped raise. I'd like that. After dinner, I excused myself early. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed." I went to our bedroom but didn't sleep. I put in earbuds connected to my phone and listened to the live feed from the recording devices. Within an hour, they started talking. Sarah's voice came through clearly. He agreed to the cabin. This weekend we'll finish it. Derek responded, How exactly? Sarah's tone was casual, like she was discussing dinner plans instead of murder. We'll take him out on the boat. Get him drinking. He'll be drowsy from the medication in his morning coffee. Once we're far enough from shore, it'll be easy. He falls in, we panic, call for help too late. Tragic accident. Kyle's voice wavered slightly. Are you sure about this, Mom? Sarah's response was sharp. Don't get weak now. We've come too far. Do you want to struggle for money the rest of your life? This is our chance. Thomas has no family to ask questions. His friends barely see him anymore because he's always working. No one will suspect anything. Derek agreed. The insurance money will set us up for life. College paid for, a new house, everything. I listened to them divide up my life insurance money like it was already theirs. $750,000, split 3 ways. My hands clenched into fists under the blankets. I barely slept again. At dawn, I got up and went for a run, something I hadn't done in months. I needed to clear my head and make a plan. The blocked number called while I was jogging through the park. I answered, breathless. Who are you? I demanded. There was a pause. My name is Robert Chin. Your wife worked with my brother, David, 4 years ago. He died last year. Drowning accident at a lake cabin. My blood ran cold. What? Robert's voice cracked with emotion. David had life insurance too. $700,000. Beneficiary was a girlfriend he'd been dating for 8 months. A woman named Sarah Martinez. I stopped running. That's her maiden name. Robert continued, after David died, I didn't believe the accident story. He was an excellent swimmer. I hired a private investigator. Found out the girlfriend had a history. 2 previous partners, both died under suspicious circumstances. But nothing was ever proven. When I saw Sarah's wedding announcement to you 2 years later, I tried to warn you. Sent letters. You never responded. I remembered throwing away letters from someone I didn't know, thinking they were junk mail. I never read them. Robert sighed. I've been watching from a distance. When I saw the insurance policy change 6 months ago, I knew she was planning again. I'm sorry I waited so long to call. I met Robert in person that afternoon. He was a thin man in his 50s with sad eyes. He showed me a folder full of documents. Articles about David Chen's death. Police reports. The private investigator's findings. Sarah's previous relationships. 2 men before David, both dead within a year of getting involved with her. 1 car accident, 1 fall downstairs. Both had increased their life insurance shortly before dying. She's a serial killer, I said, the words feeling unreal. Robert nodded. A smart one. She targets lonely men with assets. Waits until they trust her completely. Strikes. The sons help her now. They're teenagers, easy to manipulate, and they benefit from the money. I stared at the photos of the dead men. They could have been me. They almost were me. Why did the police never catch her? Robert shrugged. Different jurisdictions. Different names. She moves around. And she's careful. Makes everything look like an accident. I slid the folder back across the table. I'm going to stop her. But I need your help. Robert leaned forward. Tell me what you need. The plan was risky, but it was all I had. I would go to the cabin as planned. But I'd be prepared. I'd stay alert, avoid anything they tried to give me, and record everything. Robert would stay nearby in his car, ready to call the police if things went wrong. I also wrote everything down. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every recording. I put it all on a USB drive and gave copies to both Marcus and Robert. If something happens to me, I told them, make sure the police see this. Make sure Sarah doesn't get away with it this time. Friday came too quickly. I packed my bags slowly, deliberately. Sarah was cheerful, humming as she loaded supplies into the car. The boys were quieter, but they helped carry things. I pretended to take my morning medication, but I'd already switched the pills for vitamins. I needed to stay sharp. The drive to the cabin took 2 hours. Sarah chatted the whole time, talking about pleasant memories from past trips. I wondered how she could be so normal, so loving when she was planning to kill me. The cabin looked the same as always. Wooden structure nestled among pine trees, the lake glittering beyond it. I'd bought this place 5 years ago as a family retreat. Now it was going to be a crime scene. We unloaded the car. Sarah immediately started preparing lunch. I watched her carefully but accepted nothing she offered. "I'm not hungry yet," I said. "I think I'll go check on the boat." The boat was a small fishing vessel, nothing fancy. I examined it carefully, looking for any signs of tampering. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake my suspicion. Derek joined me at the dock. "Want to go out on the water after lunch?" he asked. His voice sounded forced, rehearsed. "Maybe later," I replied. "I'm still tired from the drive." I saw disappointment flash across his face. That evening, Sarah suggested we all go out for a sunset boat ride. "It'll be beautiful," she urged. I agreed but insisted we wait until after dinner. I needed time. Time to prepare. Time to record. Time to survive. Dinner was tense. They kept trying to get me to drink wine, but I stuck to water from a bottle I'd brought myself. Sarah's frustration was starting to show. "You're not being very fun, Thomas," she said with a tight smile. I shrugged. "Sorry. Just feeling off." After dinner, we headed to the boat. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. It would have been beautiful if I wasn't walking toward my planned murder. I'd hidden my phone in my jacket pocket, recording everything. Robert was parked a mile down the road, waiting for my signal. We all climbed into the boat. Derek started the motor. Sarah sat beside me, her hand on my knee. "This is nice," she said softly. "Just us. Family." Kyle steered us toward the middle of the lake, far from shore. The water was deep here, cold and dark. I knew how this was supposed to go. They'd wait until we were far enough out, then push me in. Maybe hold me under. Maybe just let me drown while they pretended to panic. But I wasn't going to let that happen. When we reached the deepest part of the lake, Kyle cut the engine. The sudden silence was eerie. Sarah stood up, and I saw her nod to Derek. This was it. The moment they'd been planning for months. But I moved first. Before they could touch me, I stood up quickly, making the boat rock. "I know," I said clearly, loudly. "I know everything." Sarah's face went blank with shock. "Thomas, what?" I pulled out my phone, held it up. "I know about the insurance policy I never signed. I know about the drugs you've been putting in my food. I know about David Chin and the others. And I've recorded everything." Derek lunged at me, trying to grab the phone. But I was ready. I jumped backward, away from his reaching hands. The boat rocked violently. Kyle shouted something. Sarah screamed. And then I made a choice. I jumped into the water myself. The cold shocked my system, but I was alert, strong. I'd been secretly exercising all week, preparing. I dove deep and swam away from the boat, underwater, toward the shore. Behind me, I heard their panicked voices. They hadn't expected this. I swam hard, my lungs burning. When I surfaced for air, I was already 50 feet from the boat. They were shouting, arguing among themselves. The boat's motor roared to life. But I'd reached the shallower water near the shore. I stumbled onto the rocky beach, soaked and shivering. I ran toward the tree line just as headlights appeared on the road. Robert's car. He screeched to a stop and I jumped in. "Go!" I shouted. He drove fast, heading back toward town. Behind us, I could see the boat heading back to the dock. "Did you get it?" Robert asked. I held up my phone, still recording. Every word. We drove straight to the police station. I was still dripping wet when I walked in and demanded to speak to a detective. They looked at me like I was crazy, but I didn't care. I laid out everything. The recordings. The documents. The insurance fraud. David Chen's case. The previous deaths. They listened, and slowly, their expressions changed from skepticism to shock. "We'll need to verify all of this," the detective said. "But if what you're saying is true, this is attempted murder and insurance fraud." Sarah and the boys came home late that night. The police were waiting. I watched from Robert's car parked down the street as officers approached the house. Sarah answered the door, her face going pale when she saw the uniforms. They talked for a long time. I could see her gesturing, probably spinning some story. But the police didn't arrest her that night. They said there wasn't enough evidence yet. The recordings were circumstantial. The insurance could have been a mistake. The drugs in my system were trace amounts. She's good at this, the detective admitted to me later. She knows how to stay just on the edge of provable. But we're building a case. We'll get her. I couldn't go home. Instead, I stayed with Marcus. I filed for divorce the next morning. And I started digging deeper into Sarah's past, looking for any evidence that would stick. Robert helped me. Together, we were determined to stop her before she could hurt anyone else. Days turned into weeks. The police investigation continued slowly, frustratingly. Sarah hired a lawyer, played the victim, claimed I was having a mental breakdown. Then something unexpected happened. A woman named Jennifer Lawson contacted the police. She'd been engaged to one of the men who'd died before David Chin. She'd always suspected Sarah, who'd been the man's secretary, but had no proof. When she saw Sarah's name in a local news article about the investigation, she came forward with her own evidence. Emails, text messages, photos. Suddenly, the case against Sarah strengthened. The detective called me in. "We're going to arrest her," he said, "for insurance fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. It's not as solid as I'd like, but with multiple witnesses and a pattern of behavior, we have a chance." 2 days later, Sarah was arrested at work. Her mugshot appeared in the local newspaper. The woman who'd smiled sweetly while planning my death now stared at the camera with cold, empty eyes. Derek and Kyle were questioned but not charged. They were minors when most of the planning happened. They claimed their mother manipulated them. Maybe that was true. Maybe not. I didn't care anymore. They'd made their choice. The trial took months to begin. During that time, I moved to a new apartment across town. I changed my phone number. I started seeing a therapist to process everything that had happened. Sarah's lawyer tried to paint me as paranoid, unstable. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged insurance documents. The recordings. The pattern of deaths surrounding her. David Chen's brother testified. Jennifer Lawson testified. I testified. I sat in that witness stand and told my story calmly, clearly. I watched Sarah's face while I spoke. She showed no emotion. No remorse. Nothing. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they came back, the verdict was guilty. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty of insurance fraud. Guilty of forgery. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. As they led her away, she looked at me once. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just emptiness where love used to be. After the trial, I tried to rebuild my life. I sold the cabin and the house we'd shared. Too many bad memories in both places. I took a new job in a different city, somewhere Sarah had never been. I wanted a fresh start. Robert and I stayed in touch. He found some peace knowing his brother's death was finally acknowledged, even if Sarah was never charged for it. "You saved yourself," he told me. "That takes courage." I didn't feel courageous. I felt tired, betrayed, but alive. Derek and Kyle sent me a letter a year after the trial. They apologized, said they were in therapy, trying to understand how they'd gotten so twisted. I read the letter once and threw it away. I wasn't ready to forgive. Maybe I never would be. Some wounds cut too deep. Marcus remained my closest friend. He helped me learn to trust again, slowly. Not everyone is like her, he reminded me constantly. I wanted to believe him. 2 years after the trial, I met someone new. Her name was Rachel, and she was nothing like Sarah. Quiet, genuine. She knew about my past because I told her everything on our 3rd date. I wasn't going to hide it. If she couldn't accept what I'd been through, better to know early. But Rachel surprised me. "You survived something terrible," she said. "That doesn't make you broken. It makes you strong." We took things slow. I had trust issues, paranoia about food and drinks. She was patient. She understood. Gradually, I learned to relax again. To sleep without checking locks 3 times. To accept a cup of coffee without wondering what was in it. Rachel taught me that healing was possible. That love didn't have to end in betrayal. We got married in a small ceremony with just Marcus, Robert, and a few close friends. No big celebration. Just quiet, honest commitment. Standing at that altar, I realized I'd finally let go of the fear Sarah had planted in me. I thought about Sarah sometimes. Wondered if she felt any remorse in prison. Probably not. People like her rarely do. They're wired differently, lacking something essential that makes us human. Empathy. Conscience. Derek sent me another letter when he turned 21. He'd graduated from community college, was working as a mechanic. He didn't ask for anything, just wanted me to know he'd changed. I wrote back this time. A short note. I'm glad you're doing better. Take care of yourself. I didn't want a relationship with him, but I also didn't want to carry hatred forever. It was too heavy. Kyle, I heard through mutual acquaintances, had struggled more. He dropped out of school, had some legal troubles. The whole experience had damaged him deeply. I felt sorry for him in a distant way. He'd been young, manipulated by his mother. But I couldn't help him. That wasn't my responsibility anymore. 5 years after everything happened, I received news that Sarah had died in prison. Lung cancer. She'd been sick for months but refused treatment. I felt nothing when I heard. No sadness. No relief. Just nothing. She was a chapter in my life that had closed long ago. I didn't attend any service. Didn't send flowers. I simply acknowledged the information and moved on. That same week, Rachel told me she was pregnant. We were having a daughter. Standing in the nursery we were preparing, painting the walls a soft yellow, I realized how far I'd come. From a man who'd almost been murdered by his own family to a man about to become a father. Life had a strange way of balancing things out. What should we name her? Rachel asked. I thought for a moment. Hope, I said. Let's name her Hope. Rachel smiled and kissed me. Perfect. Today, I'm 49 years old. Hope is 3, bright and curious and full of joy. I run a small carpentry business from home, making furniture and cabinets. It's honest work that I love. Nothing like the corporate engineering job I had before. Rachel works as a teacher. We live simply, carefully, gratefully. I still think about those dark months sometimes. The poison in my tea. The whispered plans to kill me. The cold water of the lake. But I don't let those memories define me. I survived. That's what matters. I learned that evil can wear a familiar face. That trust should be earned, not given freely. That sometimes the people closest to you are the most dangerous. But I also learned that there's kindness in the world. Strangers like Robert who care enough to warn you. Friends like Marcus who stand by you. People like Rachel who help you heal. I didn't get revenge. I got something better. I got free. I got my life back. And I built something new from the ashes of what was burned. That's victory enough. As I watch Hope play in our backyard, laughing at butterflies, I know I made the right choice. To fight. To survive. To live. Because when you walk out of a house that tried to bury you, you never walk the same again. You walk taller. Stronger. Free.